Well, now it may take the whistleblower who's come forward, who has given the committee emails from one of Dr. Fauci's top aides. And those emails show Dr. David Morens apparently used his personal email to talk about the pandemic and get around federal transparency laws. So meet me on the private line. He also told the committee during a separate interview, quote, "I will delete anything I don't want to see in the New York Times." Wow. At one point, Morens talks about a 2019 grant proposal with a company which wanted funding to create a novel coronavirus before the pandemic. To create a novel coronavirus before the pandemic. They're working on it. The number highlighted corresponds to a project titled Understanding the Risk of Bat Corona Emergence. This evidence is raising some new questions, as you might imagine, over why Dr. Fauci called the lab leak theory a conspiracy so many times and denied there was government funding for the research. Senator Rand Paul says this is game over.
This was his own agency. We now have proof that the NIH and the NIAID, Fauci's agency, knew about this proposal and were part of the proposal, despite him continuing in public to say he knew nothing of this proposal. This basically is the smoking gun that ties Anthony Fauci and NIH to the funding of research that may well have led to COVID-19.
Is it too late to go after Fauci?
It's a scandal, and whether or not Fauci himself is ever held accountable for any of this, and I think some of the facts that we've just outlined and beyond are pretty damning for him, the underlying damage that he and others have done to their own credibility, the public health bureaucracy. I mean, we live in an era where for a long time, Harris, the people in charge, the powers that be, insisted that the rest of the country just prostrate themselves before the altar of expertise. And over these last few years, a lot of people said, well, hey, hang on a second. That actually hasn't gone well for us. It looks like you lied to us and misled us intentionally about some really big issues in order to cover up things that you thought could hurt your side politically, or that might hurt your funding moving forward for something, or you have some ideological project, or you're just too proud to admit that you were wrong. That has deeply eroded Americans' faith in a lot of institutions, which is an unhealthy thing for our society. But the people responsible for it are the ones who pat themselves on the back hardest about the importance of experts and deferring to them.
Look, I want to point out to everybody a couple of those pictures we just showed with Dr. Fauci was another thing that we found out that simply wasn't true. And he knew it as a doctor. We see him with the national championship mask. Those were cloth masks. We later found out that those wouldn't be protecting us the way that they had promised that they would be. And he had to have known that. It's why surgeons don't wear them in surgery. They wear a different type of mask. The one then that we were told to wear that wasn't cloth. I tell you, it's been around. It's like watching a dog chase its tail. But it costs lives potentially. We got to get to the bottom of it.